Well, you get to see my hair in its natural glory today. Got my Grim here for some emotional support Grim. Hi, welcome. My name is Chloe Edith, and thanks so much for joining me today. Today's topic is something that I wanted to talk about, mostly because this is one of the main reasons I wanted to be on YouTube. So I have a lot of experience with this stuff, and I figured that this was a good way to share some of that experience because I tried to think of it a little bit as like, what would I have wanted when I was younger, and what did I not have? And that's kind of like somebody who could just explain some of this stuff in plain terms, especially like some of the practical stuff, like how to find a therapist, what to look for in one, other things like that. But first, I just wanted to kind of introduce my own journey so that you have some idea of like why I even want to talk about this stuff at all, or so just so people kind of can understand a little bit more about me. So that's the purpose of today's video. If that doesn't sound like it's your thing, no problem at all. I totally understand, no hard feelings. Maybe some of the other content that I create will still be fun. You know, I definitely still plan on doing all things beauty because that's what I love. And for me, so much of it is that all things beauty and fashion are one form of therapy for me. That's one of the ways in which I love to express myself, and it's something that you can do alone, for free at home, or at least on the cheap, hopefully. And that's definitely the way that I've used it over the years. Without further ado, I will tell you a little bit about myself. So first I'll talk a little bit about what I have actually been diagnosed with. So I have been diagnosed either currently or in the past with major depressive disorder, or MDD for short, which is a lot of people have referred to as just depression, unspecified anxiety, which basically means just it's anxiety. We don't know what type, but it's there. Dysthymia, which is a form of chronic depression, so like very long form, you know, as opposed to major depression being kind of a shorter period of time, dysthymia being like many years of kind of being in and out of depression, which very much characterizes a lot of my life. Obsessive compulsive disorder. I primarily have the kind of pure O version of this, where I definitely have a tendency towards obsessive thoughts, and that kind of relates to some of the anxiety that I have. And finally, PTSD, or post-traumatic stress disorder, which stems from trauma that I went through mostly as a young kid, and then also, again, kind of in my college years. So that just gives you a basis of understanding of kind of what I'm working with, the types of things that I deal with. Maybe those are similar to things that you deal with, maybe not. But hopefully that's helpful in kind of framing the rest of what I'm going to talk about. Now I'll give kind of a big picture of how these things have kind of manifested in my life, like across a long period of time, just to give you an idea of my journey so far. So like I said, I had a little bit of a hard childhood, so I struggled with depression since I was a little kid. And I've also struggled with some of the hard parts about OCD since I was a little kid, which means just really like difficult thoughts that are pretty intrusive on my brain. And so I've dealt with that since I can remember. I mean, since I was first forming memories. And yeah, I kind of just started to be up and down from a very young age. So, you know, I had a really hard time in middle school. I was bullied much in the same way that everybody is bullied in middle school. That was one of the first times in my life when I really started to self-harm, was in middle school. Sorry, yeah, we're like getting deep today, so I don't know if you were ready for that. I went on through high school and things were a little bit better. I still always kind of had this pattern of pushing myself really hard. I kind of have like a little bit of a high achiever, gifted kid syndrome that resulted in me being in lots of activities, really pushing myself, getting straight A's, and doing really well for a while, and then kind of crashing and burning and becoming really depressed. So that was a pattern that really started in high school and continues on even to this day. And then in college, you know, I followed that same pattern of really pushing myself at times and then becoming really depressed at other times. And then I went through some trauma that was pretty difficult. And at that time, I really came back to a lot of self-harming, and then eventually did attempt to end my life. So there's not really like a chill way to say this. Like I would like I want to be able to talk about this freely, but I don't want to make light of it. So I guess all I can say is that it's a really hard memory, but I think that it's an important part of my story because I obviously survived that, and it kind of marks a lot of things after that. It kind of defines certain parts of who I am. So you can't really tell the story without it. So I guess as hard as it is to say and as awkward as it might be to hear, that's just the reality of it. So yeah. Thanks for hearing that. College was, like I said, college was a really difficult time. I almost ended up dropping out at that same time, and I went to a small school and had therapy mandated to me by the dean of students. So this was the very first time that I ever encountered therapy, was in college. And I did not like it. So at first I really did not think it was for me. And at that time I had an attitude of like, just fix me, and it'll all be better. So I did not really stick with it at that time, but I did push through and end up graduating college by taking classes at a different school after the fact to make up my credits. So that was really great. And after that, I really started to take baby steps to improve my condition and my situation and how I was feeling. I did two important things at that time. I found a physical outlet that I really loved, and I decided to give therapy another shot. There were other things that helped me along the way because it was not easy. It was not a quick or easy process that mostly involved trying to find and use a support system outside of myself. But those two things are, I think, what really kept me going after that, and helped propel me into healthier places that lead me to where I am today. So yeah. So that being said, I obviously found a therapist who I really connected with. And that is part of what really helped me stay in therapy and start to really see the benefits of it. And like I said, I also started doing circus arts. So I told myself I need to do something physical. I hate all physical activity. I hate going to the gym. I hate running, all of it. It's not for me. What sounds fun? And luckily, I had a job where I was able to support myself doing something kind of expensive, like doing circus arts and a specifically aerial fabric, because I knew, I was like, it has to be fun or I'm not going to do it. Another thing that I did at this time was pole dancing, because it was just like looking for something really fun. And I love dancing. I would love to do Zumba. Zumba was another thing that I really loved. Basically doing these types of fun dance related exercise is what I was really looking for. And I fell in love with circus and continued to do it to this day. And I still do credit a lot of my mental health with just the consistent doing it. And so this is not an ad for circus. It's just to say that this was a really important first step in my mental health. And to this day, it really feels like a completely necessary part. Like I can feel the difference in my own brain between when I am being really active and when I'm not. I can just watch how things change for me and how I'm feeling. So this is definitely something that I continue to do, and just having something that I enjoyed enough to keep going back, no matter, even if it was just once a week, has made a huge difference for me. Or to come back after a break. You know, there's been times where I'm just too busy to do it super consistently, but I know that I love it and that it's really good for me, so I'm able to come back after a break and get back into it. So, you know, I don't want it to sound like I've been doing circus arts like 5 days a week for 5 years, because that is absolutely not true. I have come and gone but it is something that I will probably never stop doing until I'm just too old. So that's really how I see it. As far as the therapy went, I basically have been in therapy ever since, on and off. I mean, all of the things that I'm talking about here today are very much still an active story for me. You know, this is still very much a journey. This isn't over. I didn't figure it out. I didn't fix it. It is just who I am, and that's part of why I'm sharing it. But yeah, and so because of that, therapy is just something that I still do. And there have been times where I feel like I'm going to have to do it forever, and there are times when I feel really confident that I don't need it as much. So in more recent years, I have actually had periods of time in which I have felt good enough to not need a therapist and have been pretty okay with that. There are other times, like right now, where I know that I really do see the benefits and know that I need to be seeing a therapist more regularly. And I think that when you have a background like mine, that's pretty par for the course. You know, I don't think there's anything wrong with that. I'm really lucky to have insurance that helps me afford regular therapy. The other thing about therapy is that I also came to it really late in life, partly because I just thought it was something that it wasn't. I thought that it was for a specific type of person who I wasn't. And that's just not true at all. I mean, it's really for anybody. And you can also do a lot of different things with it. Everything ranging from just getting advice about things that you're dealing with on a day-to-day basis to talking through difficult things you've been through to, you know, diving into certain parts of your personality and kind of learning more about yourself. So there's a lot of different ways that it can be used. There's a lot of different therapists out there. Maybe like me, you'll try a few and be like, this is not for me. But maybe that just means that those therapists aren't right for you. And in the same way that they're probably right for other people, I'm sure there are therapists out there that can help everybody as long as you keep looking. I feel really strongly about that, having really lived through that process. Oh my gosh, I'm coughing, not crying, I promise. I'm getting over being sick, but it's not the vid. It's not the vid. So all of that leads us up to 2020. Pandemic hits. I was in a really demanding job, and despite being in therapy, it just felt like that wasn't enough. And one of the main reasons that felt like it wasn't enough to me was that I was leaning on my husband a lot, and it came to be too much. So this is something where if you have this type of background, maybe this is something you're familiar with, where where it can just be a lot on your loved ones. And so that is really when I first considered going on medication. So I went ahead and I did that. I ended up finding something that worked for me pretty quickly. And yeah, this part I still find a little bit embarrassing to talk about, but it has helped me so much. The kind of funny part is that I felt the same way about this that I felt about starting therapy, but like 4 years had passed in between these, and I had to kind of go through the process all over again with medication of being like, I don't know, it's not for me. I think I just need this. I know what I need. Blah, blah, blah. Just being wrong, basically. But, you know, when I finally tried it, it made a huge difference for me. So it really leveled me out quite a bit. I was still able to do therapy, and I was getting a little bit more out of therapy, which was really great for me. That was my personal experience. And I was just able to kind of handle things a little bit easier than I was off of medication. After a few years of that, I had another hard time this past spring. It was a sort of similar situation in which a set of stressful life events sort of triggered me back into a pretty bad depression. And for me, pretty bad depression means, you know, difficulty working, really dark thoughts that I don't want to have, you know, difficulty, if not inability, to make it to appointments, meetings, classes, things like that, and just total isolation, like from everybody that I know. So things that really affect my life quite a bit. So I hadn't been in therapy because I'd been doing pretty well before that. So I decided to get back into therapy, which has been super helpful for me. But even doing all of that, you know, I was having trouble eating and sleeping. So we decided to change up the medication that I was using. And that has been super helpful as well. we are still figuring it out a little bit. So I give this update very much, you know, in the middle of it. This is like, as Brene Brown calls it, the messy middle. So, that kind of brings me up to where I am now. Hopefully that gives you a little bit more information about me. Maybe you notice some things in the story that you can relate to. And I think that one of the main takeaways I wanted to give is that things can get better, right? I mean, that sounds so cliche, but having heard some of what I've gone through, hopefully you can see that I'm in such a different place now than I was 5 years ago. And honestly, like if you had told me 5 years ago that I would be where I am now, I wouldn't possibly have believed you. So you just never know what's going to happen in the future. So if that's the only thing that you take away from this, that's exactly what I want, because that is I'm living proof of that. So, and even now today, as I struggle with these things, I still would rather be struggling with them at the level that I'm at right now, you know, working through things, learning new things about myself, and also just kind of learning to just let myself live, which is maybe one of the biggest lessons that I'm currently working on, is to not be so hypercritical of myself. But I would just much rather be dealing with the things that I'm dealing with today than any of the things that I've dealt with in the past. And I really attribute a lot of that to just putting in some constant effort, you know, always staying in contact with kind of how I'm feeling. I have a lot of different methods that I use for that, and just kind of, you know, continuing to move forward and continuing to try to better myself, which for me really means trying to feel better. You know, bettering myself to me means how can I feel my best? And that's a long ass journey, but I think that it is a very possible one, and it's filled with a lot of amazing things. And like I said, it's just, it really is always getting a little bit better for me. So I think that that is very possible for you too. Okay, yeah, before I get too emotional, I just wanted to say that I'm not a medical professional. Everything that I'm sharing is just my own personal experience. And it's purely, you know, just so that other people who maybe are going through these similar things don't feel so alone. So I know that's what I needed when I was younger, and I hope to be able to bring that to you. So please, please, please let me know if there's anything in particular you want to hear more about. You know, I'll share what I can and what I'm able to, especially like practical things, like, you know, some of the things that I really want to share more in the future was, like I said, what to look for in a therapist and a psychiatrist, what it's like to go to urgent care for medication refills, which is something that I've done before, how I use spirituality for my mental health, how I use physical activity for my mental health, yeah, and any other ideas that you might have or things that you might want to be hearing about. You know, I really wanted to talk about this because for me, it really is like a fish to water. Like, this is just where I live. This is the realm that I exist in, is working on my mental health, and figuring out how to live the best that I can. So yeah, I want everybody to feel empowered to be able to do that. So just let me know if you have any questions. Thank you so, so much for hanging out with me today on this crazy topic. If you stuck around for the whole video, it's really means a lot to me that you let me share this with you. So thank you for doing that and for hearing me, and I hope to see you in the next one. Awesome. Bye.